Here we are at Web Summit and our first interview. I'm very glad that we have a person which is the synonym for the change. We'll talk about that later, how and what, but we are talking with Monika Mikac, CEO of NAD Ventures. Hello and welcome to the Change Officer.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. We had the preparation for this conversation so long that now we are out
running out of time. Yeah.
So let's jump right into it, because in our podcast, which is one of the leading business podcasts in the Middle East, we talk about the change and the change in the world. And your topic here at the Web Summit is the future and the innovation and the change within the automotive industry. First question is not about the automotive industry, but how do you see the role of women slowly going into the automotive industry more and more as it becomes more disruptive than it was before? Hello and welcome.
How do I see women in the automotive industry? Oh, it's a tough question. When I started my journey in the automotive industry, I could say that in most of the meetings I was usually the only lady. Things are starting to change, and I also noticed when we are hiring, like in some of the companies where we are hiring engineering positions, all of a sudden you have a bit more engineering ladies applying to the jobs, and I think that's good. I think it's good that young ladies are interested into the going to the universities related to the STEM, related to engineering side. So it's not only reserved for men, and I think this is going to push for quite a lot of change. So you're not only going to see women in the automotive industry on the positions of marketing or financial side, but you're going to see them also on the leading engineering positions.
Not only engineering, but leading roles.
Yeah.
So talking about leading roles, what is the future automotive? What you will talk about at the panel? What are your ideas where we are at now and where we'll be in the...
What I like to say about the automotive industry, we always talk about the electrification, but I would say that the electrification is something that is already, it's here. So it's not the future, but it's here. And you could see that all of the big OEMs already changed their policies, and they're moving towards electric and slowly shutting down the gas-powered vehicle production. So in that sense, I think that we are there. But the biggest question that is going to happen in the future is how we are going to reshape the way we use the vehicles itself. So are we going to go fully towards the autonomous vehicles? Because in reality, 90% of the time our vehicles are standing on the parking lot, so they are not being used efficiently. So the logical way would be to have some kind of autonomous robotaxis. We could notice maybe just recently in the media that autonomous driving had a bit of a leap down, I would say, with all the things happening and
yes,
with the Ford canceling the program. But I still believe, although it might take us more than 10 years, that definitely the way how we use the mobility is the biggest change that is going to happen in the automotive industry. Because you also need to imagine it from a perspective, of course, you're not going to, it's not going to be necessary to produce so many vehicles in the future if you're using them as robotaxis. And I think that there is going to happen a big polarization. One of them is going to be you're always going to have people who love to drive, who are there for the passion. So there will always be this some kind of supercars and drive for fun. And on another side, it would be just mobility as a service.
Mobility as a service, but when you were talking about autonomous, you were thinking about the pods that robotic are taking your vehicle to use, as you said, not to stand 90% of the time there. Talking about NAD per se, NAD is focused on automotive, innovative solutions, investments. So can you tell us a little bit more about NAD?
So what we like to say, we invest in the whole circle of electric mobility. So anything that is related to the circle of electric mobility, being it electric cars itself, development of certain technologies like batteries for the vehicles, development of powertrains for the vehicles, or development of the services, autonomous services like robotaxis, and even what happens with the batteries batteries after they have been in the cars for 10 years. So even these second life batteries is one of the companies that we have in our company in portfolio.
Oh, so innovation within the battery. Do people usually equalize electric vehicles with sustainability? Or is it, or no, there is a big discussion around that, but do you invest in...
You could always argue,
Yeah.
So are electric vehicles really sustainable due to the fact how much resources do you need to produce the batteries, but also due to the fact, okay, where do we get our electric energy? But I would say that, you know, electric vehicles are definitely one important angle of going to the sustainability.
That's good, because sustainability is a global movement again, and more solutions will go there. But talking about the global movements and the ventures, you, I think, in your career, very rich career, no matter you are so young, you had a chance to go deeper to have a deeper insight, not only in U.S., Europe, but also in Asian markets. And what is the difference between the? Let's talk about VC market first. Like what is the difference between investments in China or Asia and Europe and US?
Okay, so when it comes to VC market, I would say that US it's definitely a leader. They were the ones to start the movement of VCs. I know when I was starting my career back in 2010 with Rimac in Croatia, we didn't have a single venture capital fund. It was extremely hard to get the first money to get the company rolling. I know it was not a big of a difference on the European market in general. Now things of course changed on the European market, and the VC market is really pushing forward. While I think when it comes to China is still run a lot about government policies and where government decides that they are putting money. So I somehow have a feeling that when it comes to China, government is the one to make the biggest push and to make the biggest movement. And actually that was the case when it comes to electric vehicles. Government was the one to make the biggest change and the biggest push. And that's why China was a pioneer, I would say, when it comes to electric vehicles. Before Tesla coming and, you know, ramping up the numbers, the BYD company from China was actually not only BYD but Bike BGEV. Those were the two companies that produced the most electric vehicles in the world.
No, that's really impressive. But when it comes to the electric adoption, where do we stand at in these regions? How do you see this progressing?
So when it comes to electric adoption, China pushed quite a lot. So you have many electric vehicles driving on China, but of course China is a huge market. And I think from a perspective of promotion and what people see, Tesla in US did the best job. And it's really hard to say if we generalize America, Europe or China, then it's hard to compare because you have some markets that are really specific, like California, where adoption is quite high and, you know, people are into this kind of movement. And also when you look at Europe, there are certain places like Norway. Norway did an amazing job. Government policies and how the government decided to push for electric vehicles made Norway the first country to become, for Norway, electric vehicles are mainstream, and they are the first one to do that. So I think that, you know, a lot of other European countries used at least part of what Norway did as example how things should be run and how it should be pushed for electric mobility. And I think right now Europe is the one pushing the most for electric vehicles to be adopted as a mainstream.
Do you have any insight in the Middle East market, what's going on there, and do you see any movements there? Because in the Middle East, people are always thinking really much more in front and innovative. There are a lot of electric vehicles and so on. But how do you see the future of mobility? Do you have any insight? It's okay if you don't have, but just as we are coming from that region.
What I noticed from the companies that we have in portfolio, I noticed that a lot of Middle East governments are pushing towards electric mobility in the segment of public mobility.
Yes.
So in the segment of buses. So I believe that probably this is the segment that is going to ramp up quicker in the Middle East than just the segment of the personal vehicle itself. Because when you imagine from a perspective of personal vehicles, still the gasoline is quite cheap in the Middle East. So,
no, don't. just recently, the price went up almost to $1. Almost to $1.
Compared to
yes,
what we are paying
I know.
in Europe, or
but it was a shock for us anyhow.
Yeah.
Anyhow, okay. So another question is, as we are also mildly focused also on media, and your far background goes to journalism and the PR. How do you see the importance of communication within the industries you are involved in? Talking about automotive industry and talking about the VC's industry in automotive industry.
So when it comes to automotive industry is quite closed circle. So for newcomers, the problem is that it's not easy to get into it. But once you get into it, everybody is connected in a way, so it's easier to handle, and the communication just flows. But I think the opportunity that we have now with digital media, this is something that is pushing quite along, and that it's a very good tool. I noticed from my perspective, I don't even open the regular channels that you were opening before, like the regular media. Okay, from time to time I open CNN, but I receive actually all the time different newsletters, different podcasts that are related to the automotive industry, and this is what I follow. This is what I read every week, every day. This is something on my agenda, and I think this is something that changed quite a lot, because previously what would you do? You would buy a newspaper and you would read a newspaper. Now all of a sudden you are filtering the information and you're reading exactly what you want to read and how you want to get educated. I think that's also important from the VC side, because if the VC is focused on a specific interest, they can really filter and they can get the information that is relevant to them due to the way how media changed and how now you can really follow the channels that are of your interest, and this is what we are getting. Maybe it's not, maybe one thing that is missing, that you're not getting the overall picture. So I'm not
because
sure.
Because you're selecting the information getting to you.
So this is a bit of a balance that it's important to achieve. I know that when you buy a newspaper, you get what you get over there. So you get like a broad spectrum of information, and that's sometimes good to widen up your horizons.
Collage of the information, exactly. And for sure, as Gary Vee says, every company is a media company. I'm sure that both the companies that you're invested in or your own companies are producing their own
of course,
content.
You have newsletters, you have some kind of podcast, you have some kind of YouTube videos that if you're not doing that today, you don't exist.
Exactly. That's a good wrap up, because we will continue this conversation once you come and visit, because part of your business is also in the Middle East, and I'm sure that this conversation has a lot of more directions to go to. And I hope before Supercar Blonde, who is really famous in the Middle East and worldwide, she also started like, I love cars and I will drive cars and show it a little bit. And now they're a big company of 20, 30 people, running their media show around it. So before Supercar Blondie grabs you, I think I would love to have another chance to discuss a little bit more about ventures, automotive, and why not media industry.
For sure, I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you.